All right, now again, as we told you earlier, along with all the fun and festivities taking place, we also have a special guest this morning when Chuck Jones finally does get here.
Yeah.
He is the creator of The Grinch. He actually produced and directed How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
And drew The Grinch. He's the actual creator
animator.
Of the actual guy.
Yeah. And that is on tonight. So he is currently in the Mark and Brian limo. We ought to buzz that up and see what's happening and just find out how far away they are.
There he is.
Holy cow.
He's walking
Chuck
by
Jones.
the studio. Here,
okay, we ought to just say hey to him and then move on, and then we'll find out exactly what all did take place in that Grinch thing.
Yeah.
Chuck Jones arriving in the room now, ladies and gentlemen.
Walking in, doors opening.
Here he is, and he is.
Beastmaster Ann is leading him in.
Yes. Good morning, gentlemen.
Sorry it took us so long.
That's okay, Chuck.
Sure, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Come on over.
You can step around.
Come on over here.
You got your own microphone and everything. First of all, we appreciate the faxing you've done. Send us some of the animation from the original Grinch, which is great to have. How are you this morning?
Well, you can see it all. My goodness, send it like
Absolutely. This is incredible stuff. We've got lots of questions for you. You've done a whole bunch of stuff. And still working.
I don't mind questions. It's answers that bother me.
Okay, well, hopefully we're going to be able to fin something together and get something on the air for you. Now, how was your limo ride?
It was 2 hours and a half.
Yeah, sorry about that. Do you live a long way away or just took a long time?
Oh, I was in Newport Beach.
Okay, that's what.
Did you stop and pick up any chicks?
Oh, naturally.
Okay, then. All right.
You're a chick
When
kind
I
of
was
guy.
young, one chick did, but now it takes 4 or 5 of them.
Oh, well then.
All right, we invite you to stand by. Chuck Jones, creator of the How the Grinch Stole Christmas, will be up, so hang on for it. 10 minutes till 8. Good morning.
5 KLOS, 5 minutes after 8 o'clock. We do have a guest, and geez, it's an honor to have him here. Chuck Jones, you know him, you love him. He's the creator of many cartoon characters, the classic cartoons, the Warner Brother cartoons. He's the one who drew Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote. He came up with Pepe Le Pew, had a hand in Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd, Daffy Duck, and of course drew, directed, and produced The Grinch, which is on tonight.
Chuck, you've got to wonder when you were putting together The Grinch, and again, you were the man in charge. Were you aware at that time that this was going to be a Christmas classic that would be shown probably for the rest of our lifetimes and others to come?
Well, to this day, I must confess that I've never thought in any way that I would be involved with any kind of a classic at any time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Coyote and the idea that Bugs will be 50 years old. In 1990.
So will Mark, by the way.
He was gray to start with, which was a big advantage. At least he wasn't a brown rabbit that would gray as he goes along.
Mm-hmm.
But Daffy, of course, is a little older. Daffy's 51 now, and he hasn't a gray feather in his body.
How old is The Grinch? How old is that particular Christmas special?
This is, I believe, the 23rd year. So it was 24 years ago that we were working on it.
And of course, as always, you plop yourself down on the couch and watch it each and every year.
Yeah,
don't you?
do you watch it? Will you watch it tonight? That's a good.
I think in anything that you're doing in animation, I presume in many other ways, I know of actors like this too, who can't bear to look at what they did until they're maybe 5 years away from it, because all you see are the errors, and for the first 5 years, all I saw were the mistakes. There are mistakes in there.
Where? Where are there mistakes?
Well, all comedy is based primarily on timing, isn't it? And if the timing,
we don't know about that kind of stuff. We really don't know. We just talk.
I was listening to you coming in.
Yeah,
I think your timing is excellent.
Well, thank you, very kind.
But it is the thing. If I say that your timing is good, that's the best thing anybody in comedy can say about anyone else. Is your timing is exquisite. Look at Chaplin. When I was a little boy, we lived on Hollywood or Sunset Boulevard, right across from Hollywood High School, just 2 blocks from the Chaplin studio. Mm-hmm. And we used to go down. That's why my nose is plugged, because I got out and put my nose against that fence and watch him, because I was enchanted by him. But my father came home one time and told us that Chaplin had been doing a scene, which was one of those things where you go running around a corner, and they hop on one foot. Mm-hmm. For the audience, since this isn't television, what I'm doing is going like this.
Right.
And so he said, but he wanted a winter scene. Of course, there's no winter available, so they put down an oilcloth and put grease on it. So he did that little chopping run, and he kept falling over. He said he shot that scene 132 times before he had it right. It was for 15 seconds.
Man.
Well, his love of good timing, great timing, was an inspiration. Anybody who watches his stuff, you see this lovely thing.
So these mistakes you're talking about are timing mistakes?
I hope. Well, it could be timing. It could be drawing.
Well, okay, your character's 51-year-old Daffy Duck. I mean, do you ever look back and say, geez, I wish I would have drew that different since he's been around this long? I mean...
if the overall effect works, and as I say, it takes 5, maybe sometimes 10 years, then you think, well, look, if I went back and started fiddling around with it, and you fool around with one part of it, the whole thing may get into trouble.
Right.
You know how it is. You start fooling around. It's like you have a hangnail. The doctor says, "Gee, that's a terrible hangover," but I think your earlobe needs shortening.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If you hadn't gone in on that in the first place, you wouldn't have had trouble with your ears.
Do you have a favorite character that you've created?
I have characters that I most I associate with. I mean, the Coyote and Daffy Duck are probably, I'm closer to them because Bugs is a hero, and very few of us have a hell of a lot of experience with being heroes.
But he didn't start off to be a hero. Bugs really didn't. He got the shaft in the early cartoons.
Well, in the first one, well, no, there was one right after well, Tex Avery's Wild Hare was really the one that caught it. I'd directed a couple before that, but he really caught the essence of it in the Wild Hare. But in the second picture, he didn't realize what he had, and he had Bugs. The turtle just made a shambles of Bugs.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So it took time for us to understand what we were doing, and each character takes time. I mean,
Well, their character develops.
Bugs, as you know him today, took about 8 years before we had him the way we wanted him, and that isn't drawing. The drawing is the least important part of it. If you're working on a character, you start off like Pepe Le Pew. You think to yourself, what about a skunk who talks French in a perfume shop? Well, that in itself, the elements are there.
Right.
And but I don't know at this point in any way. If I'm writing a screenplay, I don't know who the character is. That hasn't been cast yet, right? So what I try to do is get the essence of the character. Who is the character, not what is it? And then you can start drawing.
So when you develop Grinch, you're the one who actually put the pen to paper and came up with the Grinch.
Well, there's the book of Grinch. Of course, that was written by Dr. Seuss when he was 53 years old. Because you remember in there when he says, for 53 years I put up with it, now I must stop Christmas from coming. Wow. And that 53 years was because that's how old Dr. Seuss was at the time.
Now, was there any time when you're putting this cartoon together and Dr. Seuss comes in and he shows you the storyboards and he starts talking about green eggs and ham? I would imagine to an adult it seems fairly stupid. Do you ever question what the hell he's thinking about?
Sure.
What's on your mind?
Slap him around a little bit.
How can this snap out of it?
Well, you know full well that when you're writing, the writer and the director are always at war, and they should be. Because taking a book and putting it on the screen,
Two separate things.
You're making a film out of it.
Right.
I mean, probably the greatest example of this to me was The Great Expectations. Did you remember that? Well, it's a fantastic book, but it's a fantastic film. Ronald Neiman and those guys put it together, and yet what they did was they say, looking over your shoulder always as the author. But the author's writing, he describes things. You've got to show it.
Right. When the Grinch was finished, when you had put your John Henry on the thing and it was done and ready to be shown the first time, were you pleased with what had come out?
I was scared. Well, you take a word that starts with S and then 2 dashes and then a T.
Yeah.
That's what
I
I was, because I didn't really know, and you don't ever know. You're afraid the damn thing isn't going to even move.
How was it taken when it first was shown?
Well, his agent hated it. His agent at MCA or wherever it was thought it was terrible, and most of the people, even the people at Random House, didn't like it. And one of the strangest things was that we wrote while we were doing it. We wrote all that phony Latin, Fahu Ramas, Dahu Ramas, Welcome Christmas, Christmas Day, and it went on with all this gibberish, this Latin gibberish, and people listen to this, and they couldn't understand it. A couple of years later, they come back and say, gee, you certainly fixed that dialogue since last year. Of course, we didn't change it at all. But they're used to it. They begin to understand that it's fun that way,
Was the image in your mind when they set the Grinch storyboard in front of you? I mean, did you know what he should look like?
No, the problem there is, we had the book, and again, if you're illustrating a book, you can make a Grinch which on one page looks one way, and the next page it looks different. If you look through that book, you'll see that he changes a great deal. That's fine in a book, but you're not comparing.
Right.
But when it starts to move, you have to have logic. The thing has to be believable. And like when I did Horton Here's a Who, which had an elephant, I made some drawings of the elephant to show Ted the way I thought it should be carried. Ted Geisel, Dr. Seuss, and so he said, well, the elephant's leg doesn't move that way, And I said, well, it doesn't on this illustration. But I turned the next page, and he had the bending in a different place. Well, I said, Ted, if you want these guys to look like a spastic elephant, we've got to make up our mind which way those legs should bend.
Chuck Jones is our special guest. He is
Boil that dust back. Boil that dust back. Boil that dust back. Boil that dust back.
He is the producer and director of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which again is on tonight. So if you have a question for him, this could be the time to call.
Ask Chuck on the Mark O'Brien program, KLOS.
That's what. And so then he got so mad at us, he sent us upstairs. But in the meantime, he put the dog in a corner where it supposedly couldn't fall over, so the dog fell over frontwards. So then we were upstairs.
Poor dog.
And just
Losing it. We're trying to keep, and then we'd hear this distant saying, "Sit," and then there'd be a hesitate, and then we hear plump, sit, plump.
Did he ever learn how to sit?
So that was when I was no, he couldn't.
Poor dog.
But so that was the reason that I used him in here, because that was a funny incident. So I put it on Max.
You also made a real interesting comment that I'd never really thought that much about, but in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Max is us, is the public, is the person.
The microcosm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You have to have somebody in there that represents the way I was feeling, and presumably other people. I don't try to figure out what other people think, but I go on the supposition that, like Ulysses S. Grant, I put myself with presidents wherever possible, and he said,
so do we.
He said, I'm an average man, but I work harder at it than the average man. That's what I feel about my work. I feel that my work is. I don't take myself seriously, but I take my work very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like you guys, you have fun with it, but you take it seriously, and you do put effort in.
We work hard on the show.
Absolutely,
5-6 hours a day.
It's more than that usually. Sometimes we don't even leave.
We spend the night together. A lot of times,
we don't want to get into that together. Okay, Chuck, there's a question on the phone that we could go to. A guy has a question about something. Morning, sir. You're on the air.
Yeah, this me?
Yeah, go ahead.
On the air with Chuck Jones.
Okay, I was curious. There's a boat in the harbor. I won't mention the harbor because you'd undoubtedly get bugged endlessly. Do you own a boat, though, called Gotcha at Last that depicts Wile E. Coyote? He's got his arm straight out at like a 90 from his body, holding the Roadrunner by the throat.
Is that your boat, he's asking?
No, it isn't, and I object to that, because I feel that if the Coyote ever catches the Roadrunner, I'd be out of business.
It's over, yeah.
So, no, it isn't mine. I don't know whose that is. We had a boat, but it wasn't, the thing I liked about the boat that we had was that we called it the Roadrunner, the Sea Runner. Actually, we called it the Sea Runner, and we put it as his home port of Albuquerque, because that's where Bugs Bunny always was making that left turn.
Well, now, speaking of that, has the Coyote ever gotten really, really close? Was there one episode that you did where you remember him specifically saying, I'm going to let him almost get him this time?
Yes, actually, this year we had I made 3 reasonably new short subjects several years ago, and among them was a Coyote and Roadrunner 6-minute short. And the Coyote actually caught the Roadrunner. He caught him, but he didn't triumph, you see.
What happened?
Next year, well, I won't tell you.
Come on. Come on.
One thing, it takes too long. It takes a terrible build-up.
My eyes are like wider than saucers.
Ready for it. Very traumatic stuff.
Wow. And that is to come?
It ran this year, but it'll run again next year. It's called Bugs Bunny's Busting Out All Over, and it'll be on CBS.
Okay.
And in there, he actually caught him. But
so it has been on. So what happens?
He's going to make you rent it.
Come on. It's like giving away the plot of Hamlet.
Yeah. Better than Hamlet. Because
God forbid you should do that.
I'd watch a cartoon before Hamlet anytime. A Chuck Jones cartoon? Hell yeah.
Yeah, put Hamlet away.
Now, for a while, you had the Coyote.
Hamlet is another word for Porky when he was young.
Well, see, now there you go.
Pig, then.
We're learning.
The Coyote was after Bugs Bunny for a while, for a couple of shorts.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. You've done your homework.
And that's what was the only time really the Coyote has said anything. That was when he was talking. The Coyote was actually talking during those.
Yes, my name is Coyote.
No,
Wile E. Coyote. Genius.
He had a sort of a entrepreneur kind of voice, kind of an English.
That's why he talks.
Yeah.
Allow me to introduce myself.
Yeah.
My name is Coyote. Coyote. Genius.
Well, the typical Roadrunner Coyote films, not a word was said, but didn't need to be, because you fully understood exactly what was taking place. And I still never understood how it was the Coyote could mail off for something and get it like in the next 5 seconds.
Well, that's a happy relationship. Squirrels have this symbiotic relationship with trees, right? and snakes have it with mice and so on. It isn't a happy day for the mouse.
Absolutely.
Remember Woody Allen's statement about the lion and the lamb. He said they lie down together, but the lamb won't get much sleep.
All right. Again, if you have any questions concerning the Grinch for Chuck Jones, feel free to call, or questions about Bugs Bunny or anything.
And Chuck, I believe we're going to be Grinching a boss a little later. You're going to be in it with us? You're going to help us with that?
Do anything you say.
Okay,
All right, then. He's ours. Stand by. Chuck Jones is coming up.
Chuck Jones is here with us, and his grandson came in. His grandson, who's all 27 years old, who's in the business too. His name is Todd. Hey, Todd.
How you doing?
Good to have you with us,
I
Todd.
think the reason Chuck is here is because Todd listens to our show.
Absolutely.
Because Chuck sure doesn't.
Absolutely.
I probably never will.
He did coming in, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have calls for Chuck, and there's other things we want to talk about.
Yeah, well, Todd had something in mind. This is his idea.
Well, a lot of people don't know that Chuck had a tremendous musical career earlier in the 60s.
Chuck Jones did.
Well, yeah, that's...
you mean more than animation? He did something else?
He's got talent that's, spans the gamut of all entertainment.
Spans the gamut.
What are you saying? What are you saying to us?
Well, he's basically a musical genius.
He made an album? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he had a couple of hit songs.
You don't happen to have the album with you, do you?
I wrote down a cassette.
Oh, geez. Wow. Thanks, Todd. Jeez, this is Chuck Jones, ladies and gentlemen.
Here's an album from Chuck Jones.
I was in the range.
Todd, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, man.
What are you thinking about?
Well, his voice was a little deeper back then. I got to get the soul.
He wants to feel no clothes.
Oh, my God, Chuck. What do you...
See no panties.
Well, no panties. Yeah.
Chuck Jones there, ladies and gentlemen.
His grandson made us do that. How you doing over there, Chuck? How you doing, bud?
Well, I'm working on a couple of drawings for you guys.
You're making us some drawings?
Yeah, I thought I mean, you ought to have something.
Oh, my God.
So,
oh, my God.
So we can take these home and keep them?
Yes, you may do this.
Original Chuck Jones drawings.
Whoa.
Yeah. See, this is too much for us.
What are you going to have him do? What are you going to do?
I want to be drawn with Grinch.
Ooh,
I want to be drawn with the Grinch.
Let's see. Okay.
With the Grinch's arm around me.
I'm sorry, I won't make a drawing of you. I'll make a drawing of a kid.
Come on.
You're an old kid. You're not a...
All right. Well, all right, pretend like I have a son.
Okay.
Let's pretend like I have a kid.
Could you do something with Matthew? Could you?
But I don't like to make that kind of a drawing.
Could you?
What your son would look like.
What are you saying there, Chuck?
He'll spend the rest of his life trying to get his kid to look like the one you drew.
What the hell are you doing there?
It's going to be a tough thing.
Didn't Chuck have an album? No. I just got a little upset there.
Okay.
Around here,
if you don't calm down, you play the guitar. Okay. We got that over there.
He's been drawing this drawing of Matthew, Mark's little boy, with the Grinch holding him up. You haven't seen this yet.
Okay, I don't.
But he's over by me, and you're just not going to believe it.
I can't wait to see it. I don't want to see it till it's all finished.
Mark gave him a picture of his son Matthew. Oh, he's signing it now.
Holy cow! I just cannot wait. I am so ready for it.
You say there are two T's?
Matthew.
See, the bad thing about this is Matthew is going to want to eat it. That's the bad thing about this.
He won't see it until he's able to understand what he has there. This is.
It'd be neat. Let Matthew watch The Grinch tonight just to see, and then show him this picture, see what he does.
Absolutely. Can't touch it, but
he'll probably throw up. I want to say something about him, though.
Mm-hmm.
I remember earlier in the program you told about him blowing out the candles on his cake.
Right.
Well, my daughter was about his age. We were on New Year's Day party and New Year's party, and we were drinking champagne and enjoying it. And she wanted some, so I got her a teaspoonful and put a little sugar and gave it to her. And she slopped it up, and then she looked at me and I said, "How do you like it?" She said, "I like it." She says, "It's full of jokes." Well, then things really happened, because the next New Year's Eve she wanted another teaspoonful.
Uh-oh.
So when she was 4, I signed her up with Alcoholics Anonymous, from the youngest member.
And probably still a fine standing member.
Okay, here it is.
Here you go.
The presentation. Isn't that great?
Oh my God.
Great or what?
What I'm holding is a piece of paper with it's like a letterhead from Chuck Jones, and it is a drawing of the Grinch, who, after his heart has been expanded through all the wonderment of Christmas, he's holding up my son Matthew. God almighty, you just don't ever know. For Matthew, with love, the Grinch and Chuck Jones, 1988. Man,
that's really great.
Oh, I could never repay you for this, but let me try.
Okay.
My wife isn't home right now. Let me buzz her up real quick and see what's going on.
Say, for the first time in my 29 years, I wish I had a child.
Oh,
just
man.
so he could make him a little boy.
Mythical child.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's really great.
That is incredible.
I'll tell you what, why don't I make a drawing of bugs with the baby bugs?
Okay. Now, that's all right. Well, Matthew actually is my
I've
child.
been talking to
So
some of your girlfriends.
yeah.
They say you have a lot in common with rabbits.
He's a breeder.
Wait a minute.
He's a breeder.
Do me a Grinch. I want a Grinch.
You want a Grinch?
Yeah, I gotta have a Grinch. That's my fave.
All right, and while you're in the process of that, we do have some calls. People who have questions for you,
Headphones
Chuck.
on.
Let's run that to you real quick.
Good morning. You're on the air with Chuck Jones.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Mark and Brian.
And Chuck.
And Chuck. Hi, Chuck. How you doing?
Fine, how are you?
I'm fine. I actually don't have a question, but I am Bugs Bunny's granddaughter, and I feel that my grandfather's been forgotten his name was Ben Hardaway, and
Oh, sure. Sure, Ben gave Bugs his name.
yeah,
His name was, they called him Bugs Hardaway. That's the way people often called newspaper reporters. And what happened was that when he was making one of the early rabbit pictures, he wanted a drawing from a man named Charles Thorson. And Charles made a drawing of a rabbit and sent it back to him. And in that he said Bugs, meaning if it had been Chuck's, it would have been Chuck's rabbit. But in this case, it was Bugs Hardaway's rabbit. So he put Bugs Bunny. And when we saw that, a moment of inspiration, that's where he got his name.
oh,
So if you're the granddaughter of Bugs Hardaway, yes, he was a dear friend, and I knew him for many years.
well, I'm really glad to talk to you, and
Call out to blow your own horn, did you?
yes.
Okay, then.
No, that's great. That's great. We seldom, we often miss the good people like that, and I'm very happy that you called to remind us.
Well, thanks for talking.
Need a cookie cutter?
Don't try to make up now, buddy. You were mean to her.
She likes a carrot cutter.
You need what now?
I need Pat Benatar tickets.
Have a good day. See you later. Have a fine day. Good morning. You're on the air with Chuck Jones.
No, I think line 6 has left.
Try
us.
line 4.
Line 4, then.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to ask Chuck if he saw Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Did he see the cartoon in the beginning of that?
Yeah,
And
Were you involved in Who Framed Roger Rabbit at all?
I was an advisor, but I didn't do much advising.
Because Daffy Duck was sitting there. Funniest line of the movie. Last time I worked with a guy with a speech impediment.
yeah, there's a lot
It
that
wasn't a speech impediment. What's the matter with you?
perspective shifting cartoons that are going on these days. Also, the short that precedes The Land Before Time these days called Family Dog, which is produced by Steven Spielberg, and a lot of the computer animation that's going on these days. I was wondering what Chuck Jones' plans are, and if he's talked to Steven Spielberg or.
Yeah, actually, I'm just finishing a book called Chuck Amuck for R. Strauss and Giroux, and Stephen is doing the introduction to it. I've known him for a long time, and he loved our cartoons. In fact, he used Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century. He used it in Close Encounters, and then Pepe Le Pew was used in Gremlins, and one of the Roadrunner pictures was used in Sugarland Express. So we've known each other for a long time, and not too long because he's quite young.
Have you heard of the name John Lasseter?
John Lasseter I believe, is an animator. I think he worked with Don Bluth. I don't know him personally, no.
He's done some computer animation, which is extraordinarily realistic looking, but still has all the.
Let me quickly explain the difference between any kind of computer animation and animation. In animation, the problem with the computer is the computer demands that you know what you're going to do next, and no good comedian ever knows what he's going to do next. That's why you couldn't take all the Chaplin picture drawings, the photographs of Chaplin, feed them into a computer, because Chaplin never knew. Like today, we have great comedians, like Robin Williams and Richard Pryor. Well, if you talk to either of these guys, you realize when you're working with them that they haven't any idea what they're going to do next.
We don't.
And that's good for us. Lucky us.
Thanks for calling, sir.
All right.
All right, then.
How about a Yosemite Sam, Chuck? No, just joking. Just joking.
Friz Freeling, I want to congratulate Friz. Friz was in the Macy's parade this year because he invented after he left Warner Brothers, he invented the Pink Panther. And for the first year, they had this 90 or 100-foot Pink Panther, and Friz was riding in the head of it. See, there were three directors, really, from 1948 on. Friz Freeling, Bob McKimston, and I did all the pictures. Before that, there was Bob Clampett and Frank Tashlin and, of course, Tex Avery. But they left in the 1940s, so all the last films are all done by Bob and
Duck Dodgers in the 24th. That's
great.
Give it to me, baby.
What about the cartoons on today? Saturday morning cartoons just don't seem to be what they used to be. Is it because we're sacrificing quality for speed?
Yes, they're and also I think they're to a great extent they're writing down to children, which is I think always a mistake. I think children deserve the very best that you can give them. And you go back historically, which I always like to do, particularly on a cultural show like this. and you examine the great ones, and you like any of the Dr. Seuss things and Alice in Wonderland, Maurice Sendak, Mary Poppins, all of these. Every one of them can be watched with pleasure by adults. If they can't be watched with pleasure by adults, then there's something wrong with them. Somebody's not putting in the proper effort. Because Peter Rabbit, for instance, is a hell of a story. It is. It's beautifully illustrated, and it's a good story. You really care. Now, people would say that's for little kids. Not so. You can read it today. And you read it to your kids, you'll get involved. You'll get scared when Mr. McGregor is looking for Peter and so on. So it doesn't matter what level you think you're talking to. There's no way of deciding that you have the right to talk down to any child.
Well, that's the thing about a Chuck Jones cartoon is that as an adult, you can sit there and watch it, even though you've seen it 85 times. And the first time you saw it, you were maybe 3. But still, you can watch it at 30 years old.
And pick up new things, probably.
Absolutely.
Jokes
enjoy it.
you didn't get the first time.
That's right. People put that thing in, and we never hesitated, you know. And I'd use a name like Daffy would come up, and Porky is fishing, and he'd say, "What's up, Isaac Walton?" And well, what kid knows about Isaac Walton? Huh? But it sounds right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It fits for us.
Or say Nimrod. Nimrod was the god of the hunt. You know, but Daffy would or Bugs would say, "What's up, Nimrod?"
We use Nimrod quite a few times.
Yeah,
on
we
the
do.
show.
It's right here on this program.
We are Nimrod.
You better use it all the time.
Yes.
We're a little behind, so we're going to catch up here. 8 minutes after 9, our special guest is Chuck Jones. We will return with more questions for Chuck, so hang on for it, won't you?
This is our last break with Chuck, and this has been a kind of a self-indulging show because we are big fans of his work and anything he does. These are the cartoons you'll wait for on Saturday morning. I mean, you flick around until you find the Warner Brother cartoons with Chuck Jones.
When you do, you stay.
That's right.
And again, in case you didn't know, tonight, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas is on 8 o'clock. If your kids haven't seen it, it is a definite classic. Please make sure that they do.
If you haven't seen it,
Yeah.
you sit down and watch it.
Well, first of all, what are you thinking about? Why haven't you seen
Come
it?
on.
We also are extremely lucky. We have some actual drawings who Chuck did for us right here in the room. What is he doing for you, Brian?
Brian.
Oh, you're Brian.
Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, he's doing Max and Grinch.
Max and Grinch. Is that what
Max
you
and
wanted?
Grinch, yeah.
That's what you requested.
Yeah. I don't have a son, so he's doing Max for me.
Who knows? Your son may wind up looking like Max.
I'd be damn lucky.
If that be the
I
case,
would be damn lucky.
you got that right there.
There you go. So this is our last break with him, and we've got so many more questions to ask him. We're going to ask you about Roadrunner and the Coyote. There's no dialogue in that, but yet it's just as funny, and sometimes more funny than most of them. Thank you very much. This looks great. Look at this.
I think it's. Oh, and he's
the classic confrontation when he picks Max up and looks at him and snares.
He didn't read the last statement. He didn't notice it.
Let's see, for
Mark.
Brian, from Max the reindeer dog and Chuck Jones, start breeding, man.
Yeah, well, I'll get into
You said
that.
you wanted to have a baby.
Yes, I'll get into that. I don't want a wife, but I wouldn't mind having a son or a
Well,
daughter.
we can work that out for you.
Well, what do you say?
We can cut a deal.
Should we explain to him how you do it?
Hey, I need to know. Hey, maybe why don't you draw me some point around?
Don't you have a video, Chuck? How to boink from Chuck Jones.
Chuck
so
Jones.
come on in here
How
now.
to have a coyote. The best way to have a coyote is be a female coyote.
Well, yeah, that helps.
Do we have any calls, Ann?
So I was just going to ask you about the timing of Roadrunner, and there's no words in that. And the timing is so incredibly tight and so razor sharp. Is that really hard to do?
I know it's hard to do. It was a matter of survival with me. I either had to learn how to time the pictures correctly or I'd be out of business. But I think in the same way that you're not a musician if you can afford to ignore a 16th note or a 32nd note or a dotted seventh or any of those tiny things. If you don't pay attention to the little ones, the big ones aren't going to make any sense. So timing is the essence of all comedy. And if there are 24 frames to the second, to me, sometimes one of those frames, the 24th of a second, can make a difference between whether the thing's funny or not.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, when the coyote falls off a cliff, I found out that if he fell away, I think it was 18 frames, 3/4 of a second, and then he disappeared for 12 seconds, and then you'd hear that plop.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that plop was an accident. We were in the early days, why any sound effect that was on there had to be at full. You put what they call pots. And they
Right.
put the pots on
Right.
fulls, and no matter how far away it was loud.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in this particular thing, we were in the dubbing room where they put all the sound into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And this man had forgotten. He kept the pot that had that little sound on it, and it was down. He forgot about it, and so the coyote went up, and then nothing, and then I went plop, and the mixer, the guy, the one that's supposed to be doing this, the editor, just fell off his chair and started laughing. The only time I ever heard one of these guys laugh. It's disheartening when you're in there with these guys because their job is to make the thing right in terms of sound and
Right.
picture together.
Right.
It isn't they're not there to laugh.
Right.
But in this case, he did. He laughed so hard he fell off the chair. See? And then he got back up and he said, "We got to fix that." I said, Robert, his name was Bob North. I said, Robert, you touched that pot. You are dead. You will never do another picture.
So it was an accident.
It was an accident, but that little sound. But I said, what do you think you were laughing at?
Oh, by mistake.
It's just one of those odd things. You don't know that a thing like that's funny.
Sure. All right, let's grab a couple of calls here. You're on the air with Chuck Jones. Go ahead.
Hi, Chuck. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm looking forward to your new book.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, I went and picked up a copy of Mel Blanc's book, That's Not All, Folks, and he signed it for me. And it's a good read.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks great, Mel Blanc. He's like 80 now, right?
Close as fast as 80.
Yeah, he looks great. My question is that there's been a rumor circulating for a long time about not Bugs Bunny, about the Roadrunner and the Coyote series.
I've heard this, yeah.
Yeah, about the animation staff wanting to get together and make the final cartoon where Wile finally catches a Roadrunner and releases all of his his sadistic.
What are you saying, sir?
I'd like to know if it exists, the cartoon, and if it doesn't, did the animation staff ever approach you about the idea?
No, and they wouldn't anyway, because the basic reason for that is that as new generations come along who enjoy it, and by generations I mean of any age, I'm not talking about kids particularly, kids of any age. Well, I can explain that best by Mark Twain, who said that, he said, I never wrote Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer for 14-year-old boys. I made it for anybody that had ever been 14 or had been around anybody that was 14 years old. Well, that's the way we were. We made pictures that hopefully everybody would enjoy. But you see, as the people come up and see Roadrunner cartoons, they don't necessarily see them in order and then have the last one come along and kill the Roadrunner. Mm-hmm. So, no, it would be foolish to do that. Because hopefully our pictures are still contemporary, and that is, people look at them as though they were just made. And
you know they are.
And that's the whole point, you see.
Right.
So, I can say without question that isn't true. I'm working with Warner Brothers again, and I think they've hired me as a consultant. I don't know why. I'm not sure I qualify. But anyway, so all these... They're making some wonder. They're going to make a bunch of new cartoons with a bunch of new people.
They are going to be making new cartoons, and there's the same quality.
They have to be the same quality. Yeah. They shouldn't make them at all.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But I think they are. There's some
of them you can see, like Jetsons. It kind of bothers me. You know, they had such great classic ones,
and then the new ones.
The new ones, the scripts are great, but there's something about them. You know, the animation.
It's not as polished. It's not as tight. The characters aren't the same, and it's just not the same.
It all started with Three Little Pigs. That was the first picture. There was three characters that looked alike. Their personalities could be determined by how they acted. Mm-hmm. And full animation, just like any other kind of acting, is simply that it isn't what a character looks like, it's how he acts and makes him what he is.
I'll tell you another prime example of that is the old Tom and Jerry as compared to these new Tom and Jerry's they have out, or the ones that were made 15, 20 years later. Just not the same cartoon.
No, sorry.
Either you give me the original or don't give me.
That's right.
You're on the air with Chuck Jones. Go ahead.
Hi, I'd like to thank Chuck for just many years of great Saturday mornings. I remember my parents used to grab a cup of coffee and come in and watch him with me.
Doing some reminiscing.
Oh, yeah, Dad and me, man. Bugs Bunny, Dad and me.
It had to be.
Sitting right there. And I'm there at 6 o'clock, watching the test pattern, waiting for Bugs Bunny to come on.
I imagine all that violence hurt him, too, didn't it?
What was your question, sir?
I was wondering what Chuck Jones thinks of today's cartoons. Because I know I personally, when I sit down to watch a cartoon, I end up flipping it and trying to find Bugs Bunny. Mm-hmm. I was wondering what
Well, I don't think of anything. I don't think much of any kind of entertainment that plays down to children. And also, if you'll notice that most of the cartoons are things that are on Saturday morning. The only way you can identify a villain is because he's ugly, and the only way that you can find the good people is because they're cute and sweet. Well, I think it's a very poor thing to point out to children, because what if a child only saw that kind of thing? What would they do when they grew up with a thing like the Elephant Man or Hunchback of Notre Dame? So you've got to spend the money. It's a very expensive thing to make good animation, but the answer there, and I think Warner Brothers finally and wonderfully have come to the conclusion that good animation will last. Mm-hmm. When I started, this is my 50th year as a director in animation, and I never gave up the idea that animation was a worthy profession. And so when I couldn't do Bugs Bunnies and so on, I did the Cricket on Times Square and Rikki Tikki Tavi and the White Seal and, of course, the Grinch. But all these are full animation. All these are characters acting, not just drawings.
Thanks for your question, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Well, Chuck, we're going to wrap it up here in a few moments. Know that tonight, I know both Mark and Brian will be watching The Grinch with fond memories of you. And again, thanks for the original drawing.
This is really special.
Matthew is going to really get a kick out of this as soon as he's able to understand what he has. So,
and just, Chuck Jones writing the word breeding is it's special for me.
Breeding man.
Start breeding, man. So thank you. And as this last caller said, I really couldn't say it better. Thank you for your gift and your talent and your hard work over the years. You've created things that will last and last and last far beyond your years, our years.
And isn't that a neat thing? Isn't that?
It is a great gift. I mean, it's a great gift from the world, because what happened was that when I came out of art school, I mean, somebody, to the wonder of all wonders, decided to pay me for doing what I enjoyed doing.
Isn't that neat?
And that's been all my life. And that's why you guys are good. And you'll go on forever, too, because...
we're just looking for Thursday. Okay, we get to Thursday, we're doing. We're coasting free.
That's all I ever look for. Another thing is that if you don't worry at the end of each program whether you're going to be able to do it right the next day, there's something wrong with you, because anxiety is the handmaiden of any kind of creative work, and comedy particularly. If you think you know what you're going to be doing, you're in trouble. Because every time I made a drawing, like here, you give me a blank piece of paper, and I think, geez, can I make a drawing these guys will like? If you don't feel that way, there's something wrong with you. Confidence is what they forget it. And when you sit down to draw, however, when you finally say, yeah, I want to make a drawing for Brian and Mark, then when you start drawing, then you're one with the gods. But in between times, you're one with the gods. But in between times, your anxiety will, takes over. And I know they said that Isadora Duncan, when she died, before she died, said, if I'd only once in my lifetime made an authentic gesture. Degas said, if I could only draw. That's the last words he had. One of the greatest artists that ever lived.
8 o'clock tonight, right? The Grinch Stole Christmas. Chuck Jones is the man, and he has been kind enough to join us today, and we do appreciate it, Chuck. Again.
We have an official non-toxic cookie cutter for you there, Chuck.
Hey, think about that.
Really?
Yeah.
I have a non-toxic cookie.
Okay, good. Good for that. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.
Please join us again anytime you want.
Invite us back.